Welcome back to Talk Tickers, the show where we deep dive into the most recent earnings calls. And today we're going to be looking at Harmony Biosciences.
That's right.
Their Q4 2024 earnings call just dropped, and there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah.
So to set the stage for our listeners, Harmony Biosciences, they're a big player in the world of sleep-wake treatments.
Yes.
And, as we always do, we're going to start with a high-level overview and then really get into the weeds.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the big takeaways for you from this earnings call?
Well, I think the headline is that Wachix, their flagship narcolepsy drug, continues to perform exceptionally well.
Okay.
They reported $714.7 million in annual revenue.
Wow.
Which is a 23% jump from the previous year.
That is impressive. 23% growth, in this economy, in this market. That's really something.
It is.
So clearly there is a huge unmet need for these effective narcolepsy treatments.
Absolutely.
And Wachix is really addressing that. So that's definitely good news for Harmony.
Yeah, and they even settled their first generic drug challenge. So it looks like Wachix is going to be around for a while.
Okay, so smooth sailing there.
Yeah.
But I understand there are also maybe some choppy waters in this earnings call.
Yeah, there was a bit of a setback with Piddle Ascent,
Okay.
which is their planned treatment for idiopathic hypersomnia, or IH.
Okay.
The FDA issued a refusal to file letter, which basically means they weren't satisfied with the data that Harmony submitted.
Okay, so they need more information before they'll even consider approval.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a definite disappointment, especially given all the excitement around Piddle Ascent as a potential new treatment option.
Yeah.
But let's focus on the positives here for a second. Wachix, like we said, it's doing really well. Can you give us a little bit more detail about what's driving that success?
Sure. So Wachix is seeing strong uptake in both adult and pediatric prescriptions. And what's interesting is it's attracting prescribers who don't usually prescribe the other main narcolepsy treatment, which is oxybate.
Okay.
So this suggests that Wachix isn't just another Me Too drug.
Right.
It's really offering a different approach to treating narcolepsy.
So it's actually changing the treatment paradigm in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And Harmony is clearly very confident in Wachix's future. I mean, they're projecting revenue to be between $820 million and $860 million in 2025.
Yeah, those are some pretty bold numbers.
They are, but they're not just resting on their laurels, are they? I mean, they have this whole pipeline of new therapies in development.
Yeah,
right?
they do. And it includes, even with this setback, they're still working on new and improved versions of Piddle Ascent.
Okay, so they're not giving up on it completely?
No, not at all.
What are they doing with Piddle Ascent?
Well, they have a multi-pronged approach, what they call a life cycle management strategy.
Okay.
But essentially, they're trying to make it more effective and address some of its limitations.
So how are they doing that? What specific steps are they taking?
Well, they're developing two modified versions of Piddle Ascent.
Okay.
Piddle Ascent HD and Piddle Ascent GR.
Okay, so two different modified versions. Now, what's the difference?
So Piddle Ascent HD is designed to be even more effective at treating excessive daytime sleepiness, or EDS.
Okay, EDS, that's a big problem for people with narcolepsy and IH.
Yeah, it can really impact their quality of life.
Absolutely.
So with Piddle Ascent HD, they're trying to really target that symptom more effectively.
So they're going after that core symptom even harder.
Exactly.
Okay, now what about Piddle Ascent GR? What's the focus there?
So Piddle Ascent GR is a gastro-resistant formulation.
Okay.
So they're trying to minimize the GI side effects that some patients experience with the current version of Piddle Ascent.
Oh, right, because side effects can be a real issue. They can lead to people not taking their medication or not taking it as prescribed.
Exactly. And that obviously impacts the effectiveness of the treatment.
Absolutely.
So by improving tolerability, they're hoping to improve patient adherence and satisfaction.
That's a really smart strategy. It's not always about just coming up with a brand new drug. Sometimes it's about making the existing drugs better.
Exactly.
Now, I understand that they also have something potentially even more groundbreaking in the works.
Yeah, you're talking about their orexin-2 receptor agonists.
Right. And this is different from the other orexin-2 receptor agonists that are already on the market.
It is. Yeah, the preclinical data is very promising.
Now remind me what's so special about orexin-2 receptor agonists. I mean, why is everyone so excited about them?
Well, orexin is a neuropeptide that plays a key role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle.
Okay.
And so these agonists, they basically mimic the effects of orexin,
Okay.
helping to promote wakefulness.
Okay.
Now, the thing that's exciting about Harmony's or orexin 2 receptor agonist is that it seems to have greater potency and selectivity compared to the existing options.
And what does that mean? Greater potency and selectivity. Why is that important?
So greater potency means that it could be effective at lower doses. Okay.
And that could potentially lead to fewer side effects.
Got it.
And higher selectivity means that it targets those specific receptors involved in sleep-wake regulation more precisely,
Okay.
which again could also translate to a better safety profile.
So potentially a more effective and a safer treatment.
Exactly. That's the hope.
Now, Harmony isn't just focusing on sleep-wake disorders, are they? They're also branching out into some other areas, like rare diseases, for example.
That's right. They have a drug called ZYN002,
Okay.
which is in development for Fragile X syndrome.
And what is Fragile X syndrome, just to remind our listener?
So Fragile X syndrome is a rare genetic disorder that causes a range of developmental problems, including learning disabilities and cognitive impairment.
Okay, and ZYN002, this is a pretty unique drug, right?
Yeah, it's a cannabidiol gel formulation.
Okay, interesting. So they're really thinking outside the box here.
They are, and the phase 3 trial results are actually expected later this year.
Wow, so they're pretty far along in the development process.
They are, and this could be, a really big deal for the Fragile X community if this drug is successful.
Absolutely.
And they're not stopping there. They're also building a whole rare epilepsy franchise.
That's right.
Focusing on Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome.
Yeah, these are some serious, often debilitating seizure disorders.
Yeah.
And there's a real need for new and more effective treatments.
Absolutely.
So they're developing 2 investigational drugs.
Okay.
EPX-100 and EPX-200.
And those are already in phase 3 trials.
That's right.
Wow. So it sounds like Harmony is really firing on all cylinders here.
They are. They're a company on the move.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Harmony Biosciences.
We have.
We've talked about their financials, their pipeline, their expansion into new therapeutic areas. It's clear that they have a lot going on.
Yeah, they're definitely one to watch.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Talk Tickers. Before the break, we were talking about Harmony Biosciences and their impressive performance and their plans for the future.
Right. We talked about, their strong financial results thanks to Wachix and their commitment to developing this diverse pipeline of new therapies. But we also mentioned the FDA's refusal to file letter for Piddle Ascent for idiopathic hypersomnia, or IH. It seems like a setback, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how this might impact their overall strategy.
Yeah, it's definitely a hurdle for them. But I don't think it's a game changer. Harmony has been very transparent about the FDA's concerns, and they've already outlined a plan to address them. They're committed to gathering additional data and resubmitting the application.
So more of a delay than a derailment.
Exactly. And in the meantime, they're continuing to advance their other programs, including those modified versions of Piddle Ascent, Piddle HD, and Piddle Ascent GR that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Right. And those modifications seem like smart moves.
Yeah.
Addressing both efficacy and tolerability issues. Just saying, okay, we got some feedback. Now we're going to make this drug even better.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It highlights their commitment to continuous improvement and their focus on patient needs.
Speaking of patient needs, let's dive a bit deeper into their expansion beyond sleep-wake disorders, particularly their foray into rare diseases. You mentioned they have a drug, ZYN002. In phase 3 trials for Fragile X syndrome. What's the significance of this move, and what does it tell us about Harmony's long-term strategy?
Well, it's a bold move, and it signals their intention to diversify their portfolio and establish themselves as a leader in multiple therapeutic areas. The rare disease space is attractive for a number of reasons.
Okay, I'm all ears. What makes rare diseases so attractive for a company like Harmony?
Well, for one thing, there's often a high unmet medical need in these areas, meaning there are few, if any, effective treatments available. And this can translate into a faster regulatory pathway, as the FDA is often more willing to expedite the approval process for drugs targeting serious conditions with limited treatment options.
So potentially a shorter time to market.
Exactly.
Which can be crucial in the fast-paced world of drug development. What else makes rare diseases appealing?
Another factor is pricing. because these drugs are often targeting smaller patient populations. They can command premium prices.
That makes sense. Yeah, if you're developing a drug for a very specific and rare condition, you can charge more for it. But are there any risks or challenges associated with this strategy?
Of course, developing drugs for rare diseases can be challenging as the patient populations are small, making it harder to recruit for clinical trials. And the scientific understanding of these diseases is often less advanced, which can complicate the drug development process.
So it's a high risk, high reward scenario. But it seems like Harmony is willing to take those risks to pursue their vision of addressing unmet medical needs, even in these challenging areas.
Exactly. And they're not just dipping their toes into the rare disease pool. They're diving in headfirst with ZYN002 for Fragile X syndrome and their growing epilepsy franchise.
Let's talk a bit more about that epilepsy franchise. You mentioned they have two drugs in phase 3 trials, EPX-100 and EPX-200 for Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. What can you tell us about these conditions and the potential impact of these new therapies?
So Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome are both severe forms of epilepsy that often begin in childhood. They're characterized by frequent and often debilitating seizures that can significantly impact quality of life.
So there's a real need for new treatment options.
Absolutely. The existing treatments often have limited effectiveness and can cause significant side effects. Harmony is developing EPX-100 and EPX-200 with the goal of providing safer and more effective seizure control for these patients.
That sounds incredibly promising, and it speaks to their commitment to addressing the needs of patients who are often overlooked or underserved by the current healthcare system. It's impressive to see them tackling these complex and challenging conditions.
It is, and they're doing it with a focus on scientific rigor and innovation. Both EPX-100 and EPX-200 have unique mechanisms of action, meaning they target different pathways involved in seizure generation.
So they're not just throwing darts at a dartboard.
Yeah.
They're strategically developing therapies
Yeah,
based on a deep understanding of the underlying science.
exactly, and that's what gives me confidence in their approach. They're not just chasing quick wins. They're building a sustainable pipeline based on solid science and a commitment to addressing real patient needs.
Okay, so we've talked about their financials, their pipeline, their expansion into rare diseases, and their growing epilepsy franchise. It's clear that Harmony is a company on the move, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in biopharma. But they're not operating in a vacuum. What does the competitive landscape look like for Harmony? Are there other companies out there doing similar work?
Of course. The biopharmaceutical industry is incredibly competitive, and there are always other companies working on similar therapies. In the sleep-wake space, Jazz Pharmaceuticals is a major player with their drug Xyrem for narcolepsy.
So Harmony isn't the only game in town.
Yeah.
How do they stack up against their competitors? What are their strengths and weaknesses?
Well, one of Harmony's key strengths is their focus on innovation. They're not just trying to replicate what others are doing. They're developing novel therapies with the potential to significantly improve upon existing treatment options. Their orexin 2 receptor agonist is a prime example of this.
Right. We talked about it earlier. It's still early, but the preclinical data is exciting. What about their weaknesses? Where do they need to improve?
One area where they could improve is their diversification. While they're making strides in expanding beyond sleep-wake disorders, they're still heavily reliant on Wachix for revenue.
So if something were to happen to Wachix, like a major safety issue or a sudden drop in sales, it could have a significant impact on their bottom line.
Exactly, and that's why their expansion into rare diseases and epilepsy is so important. It helps to mitigate that risk by creating multiple revenue streams.
It's like the old adage: don't put all your eggs in one basket. By spreading their bets across different therapeutic areas, they're creating a more resilient business model.
Precisely, and it also allows them to leverage their expertise in drug development and clinical trials across multiple areas, creating synergies and efficiencies.
Okay, so we've established that Harmony is an innovative company with a strong track record and a bold vision for the future, but they're also facing stiff competition and need to continue to diversify their portfolio to mitigate risk. What are some of the other challenges they might encounter in the years to come?
Well, one challenge they'll likely face is the ever increasing pressure on drug pricing.
Right. We're seeing a lot of public and political scrutiny on the cost of prescription drugs,
Yeah.
and there's a growing movement to make medications more affordable. How might this impact a company like Harmony?
It could force them to be more creative in their pricing strategies and to demonstrate the value of their therapies to payers and insurers.
So they can't just charge whatever they want.
Yeah.
They need to prove that their drugs are worth the cost.
Exactly. They need to show that their therapies are not just innovative, but also cost effective and provide a clear benefit to patients.
Right. It's not just about developing groundbreaking treatments. It's about ensuring that those treatments are accessible and affordable to the patients who need them.
Absolutely. And that's a challenge that the entire biopharmaceutical industry is grappling with.
Okay, so pricing pressures are one challenge. What else should investors be aware of?
Another challenge is the evolving regulatory landscape. The FDA is constantly updating its guidelines and requirements, and companies need to be able to adapt quickly to these changes.
So it's not it's not a static environment. They need to be nimble and responsive to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. They need to have a deep understanding of the regulatory process and be able to anticipate and address potential roadblocks.
Okay, so pricing pressures and regulatory hurdles are two key challenges. Anything else we should be considering?
Attracting and retaining top talent is always a challenge in any industry, but it's particularly acute in biopharma. Harmony needs to be able to compete for the best scientists, researchers, and business professionals to continue to innovate and grow.
So it's not just about the science.
Right.
It's about the people behind the science.
Exactly. Building a strong team is essential for any company, but it's especially crucial in a field as complex and dynamic as biopharma.
Okay, so we've identified a few key challenges:
Hmm.
pricing pressures, regulatory hurdles, and the competition for talent. But despite these challenges, Harmony seems to be in a strong position to continue its impressive growth trajectory. They have a successful product in Wachix, a robust and innovative pipeline, and a clear vision for the future.
I agree. They're a company with a lot of potential, and they're clearly committed to making a difference in the lives of patients. But it's important to remember that investing in any biopharma company carries inherent risks.
Right. There's always the possibility that a clinical trial could fail, a drug could be rejected by regulators, or a competitor could develop a superior therapy.
Exactly. So it's crucial to do your own research, understand the risks involved, and consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Right. We've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive into Harmony Biosciences. We've explored their expansion into rare diseases, analyzed the competitive landscape, and discussed some of the challenges they might face in the years to come. Welcome back to Talk Tickers, where we've been going deep on Harmony Biosciences and their recent earnings call. We've talked about their successes, their setbacks, their pipeline, and even their push into new treatment areas like rare diseases and epilepsy.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting journey so far. We've seen that Harmony is a company that's not afraid to push the boundaries and take risks to achieve their goals.
For sure. And
Yeah.
and I think it's worth noting that while they are taking those risks, they're being pretty smart about it.
Yeah.
They're not just throwing money at every new idea. They're really strategically focusing on areas where they think they can make a real difference and generate a return on their investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to their financial performance. Overall, Harmony is in a very strong financial position. They're
Mhm.
profitable, they've got a healthy cash flow, and they're not overburdened by debt.
So they have the resources to support these ambitious growth plans.
Yeah.
What about their management team? What can you tell us about the people leading this company?
They've got a very seasoned management team with a proven track record in the biopharma industry. A lot of their executives have experience at larger pharmaceutical companies, and they bring that wealth of knowledge and expertise to Harmony.
That's always good to see. A company with experienced leadership, especially in a sector as complex and as demanding as biopharma. So we've got a solid financial foundation, a capable management team. What about their overall corporate strategy? What's their long-term vision?
Well, their strategy is focused on three key pillars: innovation, expansion, and patient centricity.
Okay, let's break those down a little bit.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about their innovation, particularly with their orexin-2 receptor agonist and their work in rare diseases. What about expansion? Where do they see themselves growing in the future?
Well, they're looking to expand both geographically and therapeutically. So geographically, they're exploring opportunities to bring their products to new markets outside the U.S.
So going global, that's a big step. What about therapeutic expansion? Are they looking at anything beyond sleep-wake disorders, rare diseases, and epilepsy?
Yeah, they're open to exploring other areas where there's a high unmet medical need and where their expertise in drug development can be applied. So they're not limiting themselves to any particular therapeutic area.
So they're casting a pretty wide net, looking for opportunities to make a difference and to grow their business. What about patient centricity? How does that fit into their overall strategy?
Well, patient centricity is really at the core of everything they do. They're committed to developing therapies that address real patient needs and to working closely with patient advocacy groups and healthcare providers to ensure that their products are accessible and affordable.
That's really good to hear. It's not just about the profits. It's about making a positive impact on people's lives, and
Yeah.
and that's something we can all appreciate.
Absolutely, and I think it's a key differentiator for Harmony in the biopharma landscape.
Okay, so we've explored their financials, their management team, and their overall corporate strategy. It seems like Harmony has all the right ingredients for success. A solid financial foundation, a capable leadership team, a clear vision, and a commitment to patients. But as you mentioned earlier, investing in biopharma always carries some risks.
That's right. Clinical trials can fail, drugs can be rejected by regulators, and competitors can come out with superior therapies. Those are just some of the inherent risks in this industry.
So what should investors be watching for, in the coming months and years as they evaluate Harmony and its potential?
I think the key things to watch are the progress of their clinical trials, particularly for their orexin-2 receptor agonist and their rare disease and epilepsy programs. Any positive data from these trials could be a significant catalyst for the stock.
So keeping an eye on those clinical milestones is crucial. What else should we be paying attention to?
Also, any news regarding their expansion plans, both geographically and therapeutically, any announcements of new partnerships or acquisitions could signal their intent to accelerate their growth.
So staying informed about those strategic moves is important. Anything else we should be considering?
Yeah, pay attention to their financial performance. Are they able to maintain their profitability and cash flow as they invest in these new programs? Are they effectively managing their expenses? These are all important factors to consider when evaluating any company.
Right, right. Keeping an eye on the fundamentals is always essential. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Harmony Biosciences. We've analyzed their earnings call, we dissected their pipeline, we explored their expansion plans, and assessed their overall strategy. What's the bottom line here? What's your take on Harmony and its potential as an investment?
I think Harmony is a compelling company with a lot of potential. They're innovative, they're ambitious, and they're committed to making a difference in the lives of patients. But it's important to remember that investing in biopharma is inherently risky.
Absolutely, there are no guarantees.
Yeah.
But for those who are comfortable with those risks and are looking for exposure to a company that's at the forefront of innovation and is targeting areas of high unmet medical need, Harmony Biosciences is definitely worth a closer look.
And that brings us back to our "This is not financial advice" segment,
Yeah.
where we offer up a completely speculative but intriguing trade idea based on our discussion. Given Harmony's aggressive expansion into these new therapeutic areas and the potential of their pipeline, especially that orexin-2 receptor agonist, one could argue that the market hasn't fully priced in their long-term growth potential.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. What's the play?
Well, a long-term calendar call spread on Harmony stock could be a way to capitalize on their future success while limiting your downside risk. But again, this is pure speculation. Always do your own research and consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Right. This is just food for thought, not not a recommendation. Always do your own due diligence.
Exactly. Investing in the stock market always carries risks.
Well, I think we've squeezed every last drop of insight out of this earnings call.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think our listeners have a much clearer understanding of Harmony Biosciences, their business, and their potential.
And hopefully they've gained some valuable insights that will help them make more informed investment decisions.
That's always our goal.
All right, well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Harmony Biosciences. Thanks for joining us on Talk Tickers.